Up until this most recent generation of Passat, it was based on the same platform that was sold as the Audi A6 and also as the Passat globally. But for some reason, for this generation starting in 2011, Volkswagen decided to branch it off as its own US model, separate from the rest. Our spotlight today is on this 2018 Volkswagen Passat Highline R-Line package. Yes, there's a lot of lines in there. We're going to be showing you everything about this car, taking it for a drive, and going over everything you need to know if you're in the market for Das Auto. The design of this Passat has kind of grown on me over the past couple of days. It actually reminds me a lot of my friend's 2010 Volkswagen Jetta that he got rid of a while ago. They really have kept a very similar design. And I always found that Volkswagen would trickle down the designs they were using on Audi into their Volkswagen brand a couple years down the road. And it is sort of similar to the A6, but like I mentioned in the introduction, it no longer shares the same platform as the A6 or the global Passat. But up front, you do have LED headlights and LED turn signals, and they're not like the Audi ones that progressively turn. They are just a solid yellow light. And there is a sensor at the front with the Volkswagen badge on it. That's for your collision mitigation and active cruise control. You do have parking sensors on the front of the car, and there are no fog lights because with the R-Line package, you get a sportier bumper, sportier side skirts, sportier trunk, and these R-Line badges on the side of the doors. You do have signal repeaters in the mirrors, and they are automatic power folding. When you lock the car, they will fold for you automatically. It's a nice touch. It's something that we don't find all the time in the mid-size market. Some cars do, some cars don't. Out back you have LED taillights, and I think they look quite nice. It gives the car a very sophisticated look, maybe not as much as a premium vehicle, but I do like it in this segment. You also do have a power opening. It doesn't close automatically, but you don't have to hold your hand and pull up the trunk. If you're carrying something and you can pop it open, and it's easier that way. There is pretty good trunk space too, and you do have space for the more or less full-size spare underneath. Still is kind of like a donut, but it's a little bit bigger than you normally get. And there are two grab handles, something that we talk about a lot in Mercedes vehicles, specifically the older ones. People complain that there's no grab handle because you're basically taking your dirty hands on your dirty trunk and pulling it down, but there are two grab handles here on the inside of the trunk to close it down. And finishing up, you have rear parking sensors, a rear camera, and really just cleans up the whole back there. Looks really nice. So in the back, you actually have a lot of room. The seat in front of me is where my wife would normally sit, so it's further ahead than I would be sitting, but the driver's seat here is where I normally sit, and as you can see, there would be a lot of room. If I was sitting normally, even behind myself, I have quite a bit of room. You do have a cup holder built into your armrest here, and it actually stops somewhere. Two of the vehicles that we've featured recently, the armrest just flops down. It's very limp. You have dual heated seats for outboard and also a USB charger for your passengers back here and just regular vents along the top here. And really that really makes up the whole back here. You do have some map lights and your dome lights up top. And overall the seating is comfortable enough if you're back here. There's a good amount of room. And you know, it's not a overly premium vehicle. It is still plastic back here, but for the most part, I think most people are going to be quite comfortable with space and seating in the back seats. Now, the interior of the Passat is really the weakest in my opinion. It is dated, and especially the navigation system here really does remind me of that 2010 Jetta. Now, it's not the worst that we've used, but it really should be updated soon. Considering this vehicle has been out for 7 years now, we are expecting maybe the 2019 or 2020 at the latest Passat will be updated. And I don't know why they needed to put Passat here at the top. I know what I'm driving. And again, the center console here isn't the worst, but could use some updating. The navigation software works. We did use it several times and it was accurate enough. You do have front heated seats, but no ventilated seats, and dual zone automatic climate control for both front passengers. And it works pretty well. It's not too bad. Now, I think the thing people are going to get confused about is the engine start stop. It's not on the front here and there is no key. It's actually here next to the gear shifter, which just seems a little strange. And also with the gear shifter, it goes right into sport. So normally when I pull down on the transmission, I'm kind of pulling it all the way and I always end up in sport rather than having it flip over, which that goes into Tiptronic mode. So just something to keep in mind. Now, considering this is fully loaded, there are a lot of blank buttons along here. You do have the automatic parking system, which will basically detect if there's a spot as you're driving by using the parking sensors on the side of the car. And you do have the parking sensor button, so you can turn on the park sensors to get into a spot a little easier. But there are basically 4 blank buttons along here, considering there is nothing more you can add at this trim level. Now the gauge cluster is pretty high detailed, and you do have automatic headlights. There's radar cruise control, and the controls are all here. It is really straightforward. It is very similar to other Volkswagen models that we've driven. I think the other thing that helps it stand out is it does have a Fender audio system. It's really the only car manufacturer that uses Fender over something like Harman Kardon or Bose. And we've tried it. It does sound pretty nice. We do connect our phone and use Apple CarPlay with it, and it does have a nice set of speakers, but it is less speakers than, again, some of the competition is offering, especially at this price point, considering this is pretty much $40,000. They don't have maybe as many speakers as you get on other cars. My last 2 things that we're going to talk about is this mirror and the moonroof. Now the mirror in the 2017 model had HomeLink built into it. It was just on the bottom. For some reason for 2018 they've removed that feature. I don't know why. The other thing that I think is kind of cool is with the moonroof, you can flick it just a little button and it'll open it up as much as you want. So if you want it a little bit or all the way, you can really decide. I don't know who needs just a little bit of the moonroof open, but that is something that is very unique when it comes to this car. But you and I are both very interested to see what this 2-liter inline 4 engine can do. So I think we should, it's already running, just jump in and take it for a drive. Now I know we said that the car was running, so let's jump in and take a look at it. But to be fair, we don't film things in the order that you actually see them. So it's the next day from when we actually filmed all that, and it's freezing cold. I think it's like -20 right now, and I'm very cold. So is the car. It's been sitting outside all night, like you know, the majority of the people who don't have a garage, or if you're at work, it sits outside all day. You want it to be warm when you get into it. So you take your remote, click the lock button, click the remote start twice, and it starts up for you just like that, just like a normal car. Now most people are going to let it sit for a couple minutes, and the whole point of locking it first is to prevent somebody from maybe breaking in and stealing it. There's no key, so you can't do much with it. Now here's the problem that we've had every single time we use this remote starter. I don't know what the issue is, but every time we go to remote start the car, we've tried several ways to get into it with the key fob, and watch what happens. I hope you can hear it. I'm going to move the camera in a way that you can see what we're doing, as well as hear it, hopefully. As soon as I unlock the car stops. All right, so it's -20 degrees. Your remote starter didn't work because you pushed the unlock button and the car turned off. So now you've started the car up properly. You're freezing cold. You turn on the heated seats. That's nice. And there's no heated steering wheel. It's a $40,000 car. There's no heated steering wheel. I can understand why the media screen has not been updated to what Volkswagen's using across the board for their other products, because it's a different size. It doesn't really fit in the design that they have here, but from my limited understanding of building cars, the steering wheel really should be interchangeable. You should be able to put a steering wheel that has heat on it on a vehicle that is getting replaced, because every other car, I mean, even base model economy cars now have heated steering wheels, so really there is no excuse for it. And the fact that it is so cold out and the car is so cold really doesn't make it very enjoyable at this temperature to be holding a very cold, lightly leather wrapped steering wheel. Now this is a 2-liter turbo engine. It does produce a similar amount of horsepower to the actually Mazda 3 that we featured a little while ago, the Mazda 3 GT with the 2.5-liter engine, same one that's in our CX-5. But I find that it's a little underpowered for this size of vehicle. Now I know it just started up, but you know, this is full throttle. This is like full throttle. I'm past the dead point. And yeah, it eventually gets up to speed. It's got a bit of a sound to it. Kind of sounds a little diesely, a little raspy. It does help if you put the car into sport mode. So if you put it into sport mode, it keeps those gears a little longer. Go from a dig, a little bit of tire squeal, and it goes right up to the red line. It's not really the greatest sound, but you can hear keeps that gear a little bit, and then you can put it into Tiptronic mode and shift yourself. It's a little slower. It's not as fast as some of the dual clutch transmissions we've used, but it does get the job done. But I think it's just a little underpowered for this size of car. And to be fair, if you wanted to, you could go up to the VR6, which definitely gives you more power and might be probably the bigger option, better option for people who are looking at this car in North America. We do tend to like our bigger engines and faster transmissions too. So you might be looking at that. Probably, though, most people are going to be buying the 2-liter turbo engine here. It just seems to be the more popular option with this car. But just to note, it does feel a little underpowered when you're on the highway, especially, you can get onto the highway without issue, but once you're on the highway, it kind of just feels a little sluggish. It doesn't really get up to be able to pass people that quickly, and you probably are going to be using more gas doing that because it just needs a little bit more power to do that. The most compelling thing about the mechanics of this car really is the suspension. It's one of the things that we noticed as soon as we took possession of the car and started driving it, is it really is smooth. It's probably one of the smoothest mid-sized cars we've driven in terms of the suspension itself. You can really go over bumps and it really does eat it up. It really does bounce over it, much like some of the luxury vehicles that we drive. So if you are looking for a smooth ride, then this is certainly one to go for. It does handle pretty well. It's got electronic steering like everybody else, but it really does kind of get thrown in as you're going along. So really responsive, very tight feel to it. The steering wheel is light. You can obviously one-hand it, but you can see as I do my little maneuvers here that the car really does start to move, and it does stay relatively stable. I certainly have felt in control throughout our week here. We really haven't had too much snow, but we did have a little light stuff the other day, and it did perform pretty well. It still is front-wheel drive, and again, that's one of the things with this not being the global Passat platform is 4Motion is not available on this. So no matter what engine and trim you get, you're still looking at a front-wheel drive based vehicle. Engine performance and the suspension is certainly important for a lot of people, but I think comfort is just as important. And the seats aren't overly bad. They are a little bit more firm than we've driven in some of the other vehicles in this segment, but overall it's not too bad. I don't have any driver's fatigue as we're driving along, especially on the longer trips. It's a comfortable enough seating position, and the seats themselves do provide enough support where you need it. I'd say that they are just a little flat, and even though I have been comfortable in them, I just really haven't ended up finding the perfect position to be sitting in. Some cars you do, some cars you don't, but in this one, comfortable enough, but I just haven't found the perfect place for me to be able to sit. Sometimes it feels too far back, too actually high. It actually sits a little higher than some of the other cars as well. But again, for people who are shorter than me, smaller than me, might not be an issue. And again, for the most part, I think people who are looking in this segment are going to be relatively comfortable in this car. I do believe that we'll see an all-new Passat launched within the next 12 months, which will replace this. We took a look at the other vehicles in Volkswagen's lineup, such as the Atlas, Tiguan, and Golf, and they all share a very similar interior design with an updated infotainment screen. We expect that the 2018 will be the final year of production for this generation, and a replacement will follow suit with the rest of Volkswagen's interior design language. In terms of what we liked about this car, it's definitely a good-looking exterior design. I don't know if you really need to go with the R-Line package, but it does help to give this car a sophisticated look. The ride comfort is also one of the best we've experienced in a mid-size car, with luxury segment softness over the bumps. Rear seat space is also great, with lots of legroom for adults and a proper armrest that doesn't flop down to the seat. Also, the VR6 engine might be more appealing to enthusiasts with the 6-speed dual-clutch transmission. However, the R-Line package isn't available on that engine in this trim, which would require you to go down to the GT with a more sporty appearance with the VR6. I don't want to seem like we're piling on the dislikes for this car either. As mentioned, we acknowledge that this is likely the end of production for the NMS Passat platform, and a better, more modernized Passat should roll out soon, but we do have some dislikes beyond the dated chassis. The removal of HomeLink is clearly a cost-cutting measure and only hurts the consumer. We also don't understand why a $40,000 car doesn't have a heated steering wheel, nor why the remote starter shuts off when the doors are unlocked. We'll leave it at that for now, as we're hoping the 2019 Passat will offer more features and bring it in line with the other mid-sized cars we featured on Test Drive. Overall, this is a very spacious and comfortable car to ride in. If you have a family that requires more space and aren't interested in a crossover, then the Passat might serve you well. Thanks for watching this episode of Test Drive Spotlight on the 2018 Volkswagen Passat Highline. As always, your support helps make this show possible, so please give us a thumbs up if you liked the video and leave a comment below with your thoughts on this mid-size family sedan. Subscribing to the channel helps us grow, and sharing it on social media sites will bring new viewers into the mix. Follow Perpetual Radio on social media, or click the links in the description to find my personal Twitter and Instagram pages to see what we're working on well in advance of the published dates. Until next time, take care.